Now, one thing that's been bothering me about this shot ever since I've seen it are these two little warning signs on the cliff edge that says, "Beware dangerous cliffs." Yes, it's important to be safe, but that's not very cinematic. I want this to be really epic and not have these distractions. I want it to look like this woman is a little bit in danger as she's walking up to the cliff edge. So how could we get rid of those signs? Well, there's another really advanced feature of After Effects called Content Aware Fill. You might be familiar with this feature in Photoshop. It's based on the same principle. What it's going to allow me to do is basically make a selection and tell After Effects, I don't want this object in my scene. And then After Effects is going to attempt to artificially replace it with pixels that are surrounding that selection. And I'll do this on the background layer because this is the full version of the footage. The first step of this process is actually telling After Effects what I want to remove so that Content Aware Fill can remove it. And to do that, we're going to use mask paths. Now, we've already looked at vector paths for shape layers, but using the same tools, the pen tool or the rectangle tool, we can create mask paths that reveal or hide portions of a layer. So with my footage selected, if I just click and drag, that's going to reveal whatever's within the rectangle. Now, I just want to make sure that I have a nice selection around that sign, kind of like the RotoBrush did, but I want to give it plenty of margin around it for After Effects to work with and replace those pixels. And After Effects actually has a mask tracker that works really well at moving masks around in time, which Premiere also has a fantastic mask tracker. This works very similarly. I'm going to go into the window menu and down to the tracker, and the panel's going to open up over here. Immediately, it's going to identify that I'm using a mask. Mask 1, that's what it's going to track. For the method, I'm going to change this to position, scale, and rotation because this shot is changing the perspective on the sign, so it's going to visually change scale. But with that set up, I'm going to move to the first frame of the comp and just click track forward. And After Effects is very quickly going to be able to analyze this footage, and just like that, the sign is off the screen. So I clicked again to stop it. As soon as everything that needs to be removed was off screen, then I know that I've tracked enough. Now, just so I'm not distracted with the other layers, I'm going to solo this background layer. And I'm actually going to change the mask from add to subtract. That way it's punching a hole in that footage and hiding the sign instead of revealing it. Next, I want to come up to Window and down to Content Aware Fill. And you'll notice right at the top, we have this fill target. This is a preview of the entire comp, and it has that same mask transparency showing up right there in the corner. Now, I can use this alpha expansion slider to push the margin out if you think that you need a little bit, or maybe we run it and then see, we should probably expand that mask out a little bit. So you have the ability to do that. The next section is the fill method, and there are 3 options here, and they're kind of listed in order of complexity, object being the most complex. This is best suited for objects that are moving through a scene that you want to replace. So imagine this woman was walking across the cliff, and I wanted to remove her from the scene. That's going to analyze the footage in a way that makes that type of removal easier to do. The next option is surface, and this is really what I want because I have these 2 signs that are planted in the ground. They're not moving around. There's never a time where we see what's behind them. So After Effects is going to use a different solve method for removing those objects. And the last one is edge blend, and you can think of this as much less complex object removal. So imagine a stop sign. If you wanted to take the word stop out of it, After Effects can see this big block of red and pretty much know, okay, I can replace this word stop with just more red. This could also be a good option if you needed to remove a logo off the side of a vehicle or maybe somebody's shirt. But if one produces results you don't like, definitely give one of the other options a shot and see if it works better for you. But I'm going to choose surface for this particular example, and I want my range to be set to the work area, not the entire comp's duration. So I'm going to make sure that I set my work area to only go as far as that track did. So right about there, press N to set the work area's endpoint, and then just click on Generate Fill Layer. After Effects gets right to work analyzing, and before I can even finish talking, it's already filled in that area. It's generated a new layer. This is where the actual frames are that it generated, so I can zoom in here. And it's put that at the top of the comp. So if I re-solo the background layer and play this back, that's pretty amazing. I mean, if you didn't know that something was there, to the untrained eye, nobody's ever going to notice that anything has happened in that section of the frame. And I can repeat this process just as easily over on the right side. So let me go to the start of the comp. Again, grab that background layer, rectangle tool, and draw a box around the sign, giving it a little bit of room. I'm holding down spacebar to just pan this around before I let go of the mouse. But again, just giving it a margin so that it has more area to fill in other than just the sign itself. Go to my tracker and track it forward. Make sure that it goes completely off the screen before I stop the track right there. Set my work area to that point. Change the mask to subtract instead of add, and go to Content Aware Fill. Back it up, make sure that everything is completely obscured by the mask. Everything else can stay the same. I'll click Generate Fill Layer. It analyzes the footage, creates the fill layer, and just like that, I can play it back. There is a little bit of artifacting, but again, to the untrained eye at 100%, unless they were specifically looking for that, a viewer is not going to know that you removed that sign. So I can unsolo all these layers now. All of these elements are going to work together, and I can disable these two masks on the background just by selecting them and changing their mode to none. And now I have this epic sweeping shot. I'm just gonna move the text layer, extend it all the way out to the end. I'm just gonna play this through, and we now have all the elements working together. Animated graphics, text being masked off using the roto brush, two signs removed that nobody would even know were ever there. We're doing some really advanced stuff here in After Effects, and it's really not all that difficult. And you might think that, well, those signs were really simple and isolated and easy to remove. And yes, they absolutely were. But I've seen the Content Aware Fill tool being used to remove much more complex things from scenes. It really is an amazing feature of After Effects and something that you should take advantage of anytime that you can. Now that we've completed the editing of this shot, we've got our graphics in place, we've isolated certain parts and removed others, let's just make it a little bit more vibrant, because honestly, it is a very dull shot. This is a very unedited clip. It's a stock footage clip, that's what you want, but let's make it look a little bit nicer. I'm gonna go up to the layer menu and make a new adjustment layer, and this will be my color correction. So I'll say color correction. And we're going to add a few effects. Let's clean up some of these panels. I don't need Content Aware Fill or Tracker anymore. And I just want to search for an effect called curves. Now, if you're familiar with any kind of photo or video color correction, then this probably is not new to you, but I'm going to double click it onto the adjustment layer. And what this represents is darks on the bottom left and brights on the top right. So if I were to grab this top right point and move it over, it's going to make the brights become much brighter. If I were to grab the bottom left point and bring it into the right, it's going to make the darker points much darker. And if I click anywhere on the line, so let's say right in the middle, and lift it up, that will make the midtones brighter. But it does it on this curve. So these aren't linear adjustments, and it makes for some really flexible color correction adjustments. So what I want to do is just lift up the brights a little bit, maybe pull down the shadows just a touch, so that we're introducing a little bit of contrast and even a little bit of saturation. Next, I'll collapse that effect up and add another effect called Vibrance. Double click on that and just increase the vibrance slider. This is going to make the image more saturated without oversaturating things. Now, that's pretty intense. I don't want to overdo this at all, so maybe around 50%. And then I'll just turn that off and back on to show you that really it's boosting the blues more than anything. The grass was already pretty saturated, and that's what Vibrance does over saturation. It leaves what was already pretty saturated pretty much where it is and boosts the colors that aren't very saturated. Maybe we could push that just a little bit more. And then I'll just scrub through my scene to see how everything is playing together. I think the rock is pretty dark and some of the shadows are really dark. So let's go back to the curves and just lift those shadows ever so slightly. I don't want to go too far, but just something subtle to lift up those darker areas makes the shot look really nice. So let me just show you the before and after of that adjustment layer, what a difference it makes. Just tiny little adjustments of boosting the color, boosting the contrast slightly, and making everything a little brighter makes this cliff look a lot more epic and visually appealing. Now, those effects are being applied on top of the text and the graphics as well, so be aware of that. Whatever you place underneath an adjustment layer is going to be affected. But I think this ties the whole shot together just a little bit better.